Alright, what's up YouTube? So we got something for you. I know it's been recorded and been shown, but we're upgrading the alternator on Steven's K18 car. He's been running the stock alternator and he wants a little more amperage and voltage. So we're putting the 125 amp alternator from the Nissan Quest, which is, if I remember correctly, 99 to 02. So this is it right here. So first thing we're going to be doing is you got to modify this bracket right here. So this is the bracket for the tensioner. So I put a mark here and that's where we're going to cut it at, as you can see. So we cut all that extra off. And don't mind my finger, I smashed it 2 months ago. So yeah, after we cut that off, then I'll show you the next thing that's got to be done. There's not many write-ups that really give a good explanation, in my opinion, on how to do this. So I'm going to show every little step that has to be done, including the correct bit size and all that stuff. So yeah, that's the first thing. So when we're done cutting it, I'll show you that, and then I'll tell you what's next. Okay, so before we cut it, we're going to measure and let you know exactly what size to measure, or the amount to cut off. So yes, we're about to measure that here in a second. So whatever the hell that is.
One line under a ½ inch.
One line under a ½ inch, okay. Sure. Alright, well you got the view on the tape measure, so y'all can compare tape measure to tape measure and see exactly how much that is. But yeah, we're about to cut it and then we'll go from there. Alright, now that we did that, see if I can get it to focus. Let me set this bolt down. Alright, so that's the drill bit size you need, 27/64. That drill bit is for this and for that. You don't take the sleeve out, you just drill it out. Sometimes the sleeves like to pop out, but you got to make sure that you drill that hole with that bit. Same thing with this one. And that's the exact size you need for the factory bolt to go through with no play in there. And as you see, that's after cutting the piece off. Alright, so this is the stock bolt. Now, the reason we're changing this bolt is because when you modify the alternator and you cut that out, you lose a lot of the thread. So like, as you can see in the back here, there's not much thread. So what we do is we run a longer bolt so that it'll go through, and then we just put a nut on the other side. That just secures, you know, the bolt in place, and that way you know everything's good and you don't have to worry about stripping that out and losing this. You know, if you strip that out, then you still have this. So yeah, so that's the next thing we're doing. Alright, so here's the next thing you have to do. So after the alternator is drilled out and cut and modified, then what you do is before you actually put the alternator in place, those two bolts right there for the bracket, you have to loosen them. That way you can move the bracket around accordingly so you can get it to line up. So once you got it lined up and everything, and you get the bolt started, then you can start tightening everything in place. We still got to get the other belt. It's in the house, right?
Yeah.
So once we get the other belt, we'll tell you the size that we use. Now this is what I use on my car, what he's gonna be using on his car. Yeah, so I'll explain that here in a second. Alright, so he's taking the power steering belt off right now so that we can, well actually he's just loosening it, or he's going to take it off, I don't know. I mean, there's tricks to getting the belt on without taking other belts off, but it's kind of like a magical illusional trick thing that can be done, but we know how. Anyways, so this is the belt number. It is a 4 rib and 315 is the length. I believe that's 31.5 inches if I remember correctly. But either way, that's the part number for O'Reilly's brand, K040315. So you can take that to any auto parts store and cross-reference it to get the like the Gates or the CarQuest or Daco or whatever other brands, DriveWorks. Stay away from DriveWorks. DriveWorks is a very crappy brand. But yeah. So yeah, we're about to put the belt on. So we loosened the power steering belt just a little bit. And as you see, the other belt's not on. So you're about to see the cool little trick to putting the belt on without actually taking the other belt off. Voila. And I used the first set of ribs on the alternator, if I remember correctly, because the alternator has 5 ribs, but I used the first 4. Oh, the tensioner. The tensioner bolt needs to be loosened.
No, it doesn't.
I got it. What?
It's loosened.
No. The actual bolt that determines the tightness.
Yeah, that's as loose as it gets.
No, it ain't.
Yeah, it is. It's hitting.
What the hell is it hitting?
Right here.
Force it. Make it fit. But anyways, so yeah. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so once you get the belt on, so like I said, we use the first set of ribs on the pulley. Like that. And sometimes you have to loosen the
bolt right here.
the tensioner bolt. That one that's in the front of the top of the alternator.
So you can flex that.
So what we'll do is we loosen that bolt and then give as much slack on the back tensioner bolt so that we can rotate the alternator closer to the motor so we can put the belt on. Because obviously once it's in place and you start taking up all that slack, you realize that if you would have went any longer of a belt, it wouldn't have worked out too well. So after I've been running this alternator, the what the hell is this called again? Quest alternator. I've been running the Quest alternator now for 3.5, 4 years, and it's worked great. So like I said, it's 125 amp. So yeah, once everything's in place and you got some tension on the bracket, then you go ahead and you tighten that top one up. Once you know your belt's tight enough, you tighten the top bolt to the alternator, and then you got to tighten the bracket for the pulley, or not the bracket. Oh yeah, the bracket bolts. Those two right there. You tighten those so they stay in place. Then you tighten the very bottom bolt in place so your alternator is good. Basically, if you have any knowledge of swapping an alternator on your car, this shouldn't be a problem. And a little bit of tools. We use an angle grinder with a thin cutting disc to cut the piece off of the top of the alternator, and of course the drill bit to drill out the holes.
And a fine flappy dish just to pull off any burrs.
Yeah. So yeah. Let's see, let's go back over the checklist here. So Nissan Quest alternator from 99 to 02 Nissan Quest, which is 125 amp. You can go with the 98, and I think it's like 96 to 98 Nissan Quest, which is 105 amp, 110 amp, something like that. I think it's 110 amp. But we like the extra amperage, so we went with the 99 to 03, or 99 to 02, sorry. Get the 2764 drill bit. I bought a Milwaukee from, I think it was Lowe's I bought it from. It was like $20 or some shit. I don't know. I don't remember, $18, $19, but it worked out good. I keep it in a bag labeled, you know, Nissan Quest alternator bolt. Because whenever, you know, the alternators die or whatever and you got to warranty it out, you got to modify the next one, or else it's not going to do you no good. And of course, that belt that I gave you the part number 4, that one, and make it work. And boom, you got good power. Works a hell of a lot better than the factory 80 amp. This car is a 95, so it came with the 90 amp because it has the fog lights. The factory fog lights was a 90 amp option, or not option, but the fog lights were the option, so they put a 90 amp alternator in place of the 80 amp. So there you go. I hope you guys liked the tutorial. I hope it made sense to everybody, because all the tutorials I found online just didn't make sense. You know, people were saying they used the stock belt. I could not use the stock belt. It just did not work for me. People were saying you have to cut the bracket, you know, the bracket that the tensioner bolts up to on the motor. I didn't have to modify mine. I just learned that if you loosen it, you can move it around. That way you can line it up to the alternator better. And I found the exact size drill bit by doing a bunch of research, because everybody was saying something different, or just saying use a big 1/2 inch drill bit or something like that. But that gives you slop in the alternator, and that means if it's out of line, you can kill the alternator fast. So if it's lined up perfect, then you're good. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know what the next video is going to be, but see ya.